All right, so we're going to run through the procedure of how we're setting up our lab now. So if you can see that I've already hole punched some spinach leaves to get the parts around the center. We don't want the center because that has that center vein, which is really good at transporting materials, but we want the part that does the photosynthesis, right? And so I've cut a couple leaves, and I've actually already set up the baking soda cup, and so I'm going to just show you the setup using the non-baking soda or the regular water cup. And so I have about 12 leaf discs now, like kind of all stuck in the top of this syringe, and we're going to extract the gases from the mesophyll layer now. And by doing that, we're going to be able to make the leaf sink, and then we'll see when they float and produce enough gases to make them float. That's going to be helping us calculate the rate of photosynthesis. So I'm going to be drawing the liquid from the cup with the non-baking soda water, and that cup has a little bit of soap in it that will help the gases be drawn out. And so now that I've drawn that out, I'm going to be taking out the rest of the little bit of gas at the top here because I don't want there to be gases. And then I'm going to be holding the top and pulling down on the syringe for 15 seconds to hold it down and extract the gases from inside of the leaves. And then I'm going to give a slow release. And if the leaves sink, that means that the gases are extracted already, and that's a good thing. And if they don't sink, we can always try again 1 or 2 more times. So it looks like that they have all sunk. So we're going to go ahead and put them into the cup. And let me show you that. So the cups are right here. Please pardon the spills. So as you can see, I already have my sunken leaf discs for my baking soda water over there. And now I'm going to be putting in the sunken leaf discs for the non-baking soda water. And they both are going to have 12. And I have 12 because it's more than 10, so it gives us a little bit of leeway. But also, we're only going to be calculating data up until the 10 point is reached. So you don't have to worry about waiting for all 12. And that also means that when we're adding up how many we have floating and how many we have sunk, it should always add up to 12. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and turn on the light and then start collecting data. So I will start the timer. As you can see, my phone is down here. And so the light source is from a fluorescent lamp. And that's super important because the light is required for any sort of photosynthesis to occur, right? So we're starting our time now. And every minute we're just going to count how many are floating and how many are still sunken. And that will go all the way up until one of them reaches at least 10. So at minute 1 coming up, we have 0 floating in both cups. 0 floating in both cups. That means 12 are sunken. If you want to record both, it would be 0 floating and 12 sunken. coming up on the 2-minute mark. We still have 0 floating, and that means we have 12 in both that are sunken. So 0 floating for both still, and 12 sunken. So at the 3-minute mark, we still have 0 floating, and we still have 12 sunken in both cups. All right, at 4 minutes, it looks like we still have 0 floating and 12 sunken in both cups. At 5 minutes, we still have 0 floating and 12 sunken in both cups. At 6 minutes, we still have 0 floating and 12 sunken in both cups. And the reason I keep jostling them is because sometimes they just get stuck where they are instead of moving. So I'm giving them, a little nudge of movement if they have the potential to move or not. So at 7 minutes in the baking soda cup, we actually have 2 floating and 10 sunken. And then in the regular water cup, no baking soda cup, we have 0 floating and 12 sunken. So the 2 over here are now floating right here. So at the 8-minute mark, we still have only 2 floating in the baking soda cup. Therefore, 10 are sunken, and in the water, no baking soda cup, there is 0 floating and 12 sunken. So at the 9-minute mark, let's see. The 9-minute mark, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 floating in the baking soda. That means 7 are sunken. Then in the no baking soda, we have 0 floating, which means 12 are sunken. Right, so at the 10-minute mark, how many are floating and how many are sinking? So at the 10-minute mark for the baking soda cup, there are still 5 floating, therefore 7 are sinking. And then in the non-baking soda cup, we'll see if these ones are floating or not. That'll be kind of interesting. Looks like we have 2 floating in the non-baking soda, and that means 10 are sinking. Now we're coming up on the 11-minute mark soon. And at the 11-minute mark in the baking soda cup, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 floating, which means 6 are sunken. Actually, there's 1 joining right now, so we'll actually count that as 7 floating, 5 sunken. And then over here in the baking soda, no baking soda cup, we have 2 floating at the surface, so 10 are in the middle or lower. Coming up on the 12-minute mark, we still have 7 floating in the baking soda cup, therefore 5 are sunken, and then we have 3 floating in the no baking soda cup, therefore 9 are sunken. You can actually see that one is about to join right here. The one that's on its side is slowly rising up. So at the 13-minute mark, in the baking soda cup, we have 8 floating, and in the non-baking soda cup, we have 3 floating. At the 14-minute mark, we still have 8 over here in the baking soda floating, and over here in the non-baking soda, we actually have 5 floating now. At the 15-minute mark, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 floating. And over here, we still have 5 floating. So 9 in the baking soda and 5 in the no baking soda. And now at the 16-minute mark, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 in our baking soda cup, all floating at the front now. And we only have 5 floating in our no baking soda cup. So that actually concludes our data collection, right? We already got 10. And then over here we have 5, and we actually have a 6th one rising up to meet right now, but we're not going to record that one because we're done collecting data. So you should have 16 data points, and the baking soda one should go all the way up to 10 that are floating. And the non-baking soda one, it only reaches 5 by the end. So I'm going to be having you record this data inside of your data table, like the one that we showed before, right? So you want floating in the CO2 and the non-CO2. And then we're going to have a graph that you're actually going to complete too, that has going to be graphing the number of disks floating versus the time in minutes. So our x-axis should extend all the way to 16 minutes, and our number of disks is the number of disks floating. Okay, I want you to create a key though, because we have one for a baking soda water and one with a no baking soda water. So I want two different ones to have data points, and they have lines connecting those data points. And then based on that, I'm going to want you to calculate the median. And the median is the middle point, right? So what is the middle point of 10, right? That would be 5. So I want you to find where the median time is for the floating disks to reach the middle amount. And then we're going to be graphing the estimated time of 50% rising, and then we're going to be comparing the 1 over the estimated time of 50% rising, because that's going to be related to the rate of photosynthesis. Actually, let me clarify that. You're not actually going to be graphing these, you're just going to be discussing them afterwards. Okay? So make sure you graph this one though, with number of disks and disks floating and time in minutes, and you want a key for the baking soda water and the non-baking soda water. So that's all for experiment 1. We're going to go ahead and do a second experiment based on light intensity, and then you're going to actually write the report afterwards.